believe private property rights are so important, and that the only way to maintain and allow those rights to flourish in a society is through valuing needs of the public above private property rights, that I would ask you to stand with the affirmative side. So really quickly, let's get into some responses, and then I'll kind of explain my case a little bit more. So first, he talked about its counter-value of human dignity. For the sake of this round, and I don't want to have to argue about the values, we'll just go with human dignity, and I'll show how human dignity is upheld better by the affirmative side. Next, he talked about his subpoint A of life. Now, although I don't think this is a really big issue, I just want to quickly respond that there is a difference between your right to your property does not include your right to life. Your right to your property does not include the right to life. The reason for that is because your right to life is your right to life. We talked about life, liberty, and property. Your right to life is your right of your ownership of your life. That is what you own. And if we refer back to my definition that I said in cross-examination, I said things that you create or that you trade and receive. So things that you have ownership over, which is private property right, and you can do whatever you want with it, those are things that you create rather than things that come with you, your life. And so there's two different rights. And I'm not saying that these rights aren't part of this, I guess he used a stool as an example, but there's a difference between private property rights and the right to life. Now moving on to, he talked about slavery. I want to make a quick response to that. He makes it sound like it was a need of the public to have slavery, and so that there was slavery. It wasn't because they were a need of the public. It's because the people didn't consider them human. Black people were not considered human. They were actually, I think it was 3/5 considered a human, not a real human. So it wasn't a need of the public. I mean, it was a need of the public to have slavery, but it was because they didn't know that they had rights. Once it was realized that they had rights, slavery stopped, and that's actually how the Civil War started. Now let's go into the tax response. First he talked about taxes fund protection of private property rights. That's exactly what I was saying, and you recall from the beginning of my speech that I said that we must value needs of the public above private property rights because, for instance, we need a military to protect our countries in order to do our rights. So I believe this point still stands on the affirmative side. He also then said, he basically talked about it being voluntary, as if it was an agreement that we just chose to come, we can just leave. He made it almost like a business agreement, that we just choose to come in America or we choose to leave. Now my response to that is there isn't. You can't just leave. This is from the Huffington Post, and it's talking about the co-founder of Facebook who left the country. This is on May 7, 2012. Populist anger at Facebook co-founder Eduardo Sarvin's decision to renounce his U.S. citizenship, and a move that could save him hundreds of millions in taxes, has inspired two senators to propose legislation that could hit Sarvin with heavy taxes and bar him from ever re-entering the United States. Senator Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey, they're basically the ones that bring the bill. The bill would force anyone who expatriates for substantial tax purchases, as judged by the International Revenue Service, to pay a mandatory 30% tax on future capital gains. Ex-citizens would also be turned back at the border if they ever came back. The point of this is that he tried to leave the country. He left the business agreement. He left the country in order to stop taxes because he thought it was too high. And they're trying to stop him from ever coming back in the country for any reason. He'll be stopped at the borders. So it isn't this voluntary agreement to give taxes. We can't just leave the agreement without getting punished. And that is not, the government is using force here, and taxes are a violation of private property rights. But I think they're an important violation of private property rights because they allow us to create this safe society where our rights can flourish. Because we protect our country, and we protect our country from people inside of our country, and we create this society where our rights can flourish and we can all have general welfare and our human dignity.